week, the album that we are going to be discussing is Obsessed by Morgan Wade. Obsessed is the fourth studio album by American country artist Morgan Wade. It was released on August 16th, 2024. Wade wrote all the tracks with Clint Wells producing the album. All right, Eric, your thoughts on this album?
So I have heard Morgan Wade's singles. I checked her out just to make sure I knew who she was. And so she's considered like the rebel country artist just because of her, I guess, more liberal views, right? She likes
Okay.
women, right? Not that that's real thinking, but then
It is
even her
contrary to
lyrics,
the genre. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's contrary to like his. I would say country music
More
is on the
conservative.
more conservative side.
Yep.
And so she pushes the boundaries too with her lyrics too, what she talks about. But if you're really breaking down what country music is, it's kind of like deep into the soul and telling a story
Mm.
and getting down to a root. Like she does a good job of that in this album. I found. Now that being said, she obviously has tattoos all over herself. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that most country artists don't have. I guess you could say there's that jelly roll, but I don't know if I would consider him.
He's a bit more
Yeah,
of a crossover act, not pure country.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed this album and it got me excited to go back and listen to her other stuff, which I haven't done. So
Okay.
I've only listened to this album front and back and then some of her singles off the other albums. But uh I think that this album could have been really, really, really good. And the only song, and
Mm-hmm.
bear
Mm-hmm.
with me here,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt the first two songs, she could have just canceled those two songs off the album, and it would have been really good. This album would have been intense.
Without the first two. Okay.
Yeah, Total
Okay.
Control, Department Store. If you got rid of those songs, because when I listened to the songs, I was like, this is just your cookie cutter country
Yes. Yep.
songs.
I agree with
And
that.
and
Yep.
then I was like, this is like the factory country song, which I'm not really into. But as soon as Time to Love, Time to Kill came out, I was like, it was that just that enough upbeatness to make this like you could have started the album with that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it was a really well written song. I
Yes.
felt like
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a cool song, and then everything after that was amazing. I really enjoyed it. Now you're not getting like highs and flows. It's a pretty like low sounding album in terms of the
Yep.
mood,
Yep.
but they're really well written songs. For instance, Obsessed. I think that was a cool one because it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like this borderline. She has this love interest, but it's almost like in that honeymoon stage of the relationship where you're just like everything is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And but she kind of goes more into that, right? Like she's obsessed, which is usually when you use that word, it's more of in a negative context. So I thought it was kind of cool
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
using that, but in more of like a loving, endearing way,
Mm-hmm.
which was neat. I thought the piano solo was sick in that song, and I
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like it just really just took off the song. Um, some of my favorite songs on this album were definitely Juliet.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Such a good
I
song.
thought
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool song, especially just playing with that Romeo and Juliet. But Juliet is likes her,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you'd rather be with me than him,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's almost like this negative context. So you can obviously tell that she struggled, obviously coming out, you know,
Right.
uh, as a lesbian, right? So
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
I felt like it was very true in the lyrics and what she was writing in that song. And the other song I really enjoyed was Reality. I thought that was a really cool song because I feel like everybody can kind of relate to it. Like no matter what struggles you go through in life, or you may be facing something tough that you're like, I know this is going to be tough when I have to face it, but it's almost just like let's just ignore reality just a little longer just to kind of stay in this
Mm-hmm.
blissful moment that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really cool how she wrote it. It's almost like she's with this lover, and she obviously knows it's going to end or something's bad's going to happen, but she just wants to stay in the moment and embrace the moment still before she faces the reality. So, I mean, she's a good songwriter. She's got a good voice, um, and the songs were great. I felt like the band was pretty on par, and the backup vocals were sick throughout the
Yes.
entire song.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. Backup
So,
vocals were really nice. I want to get your thoughts on "Walked on Water" featuring Kesha,
yes,
cause
that was
like,
sick.
cause,
That's yeah. Go on.
cause I was gonna say like from overall the album, vocally, I was like, oh, it's like her vocals are nice, but I wouldn't say they're like powerhouse vocals. It's just
Mhm,
very honest vocals and just like I wouldn't say above, like slightly above average singer or above average singer, but not like gonna blow your socks off type of singer. But then when Kesha comes in on that song, I'm just like,
mhm,
holy crap, this is like a whole nother level of singing. And for the rest of the album, it sort of it sort of ruined it for me because I was like, oh, that's what a singer can do on a song and just make it alive. And that's I was sort
mhm.
of like looking for that. Um, so I don't know if the feature was the right choice, but I thought it was kick ass either way.
No, and that's the thing. Like I thought, and when Kesha started singing, I looked down because I was like, "Who's singing this? This is," and I was like, "Holy shit, it's Kesha!" And like Kesha surprises me because you could tell she was very controlled
Right.
in when she started as a musician.
Yeah.
And she's coming out with these trash songs. I'm sorry, I'm gonna put it
It
out
is.
there. They
No.
were trash
Yeah.
songs.
They were.
And then you hear other stuff that she does with collaborating artists when she kind of broke free from that. Like she obviously struggled with the music industry in terms of more of a derogatory term like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah.
However, it just shows the potential of some of these artists that are like, what do they like? You listen to somebody and you're like, what this person I feel like could be way better than what they are, but somebody's holding them back.
It's very similar to like a Lady Gaga, right? Like I would say a lot of her songs are complete trash, but then if you like watch her do like acoustic performances or just do some sort of ballad or the national
Mhm,
anthem, you're just like, shit, she can really sing. Why is she
mhm.
doing these stupid ass pop songs?
Yeah,
Right? Like,
it's it's insane because that's another thing. I'm glad you mentioned that because I completely forgot about that. "Walked on Water" is a sick song,
yes.
and I think it should have been the closer.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I would have, yes, I would have been much happier if that was the closer because honestly, the next four songs, as good as they were, I was like, this is a bit of a letdown.
Mhm, it's filler.
Yeah,
It's filler because I felt the same too. I was just like, wow. Then I had to listen to the last four songs a couple times just by themselves because I was like, wow, that song is crazy. And then next thing I know, I'm halfway through the next song,
yeah,
and I'm like, oh shit, there's another song playing,
yeah,
kind of thing, right?
yeah. So like, I don't know. I for a part of me is like, oh, maybe you should have had that feature on. But you do bring up a good point. If it was the closer, that would have been a really great spot to put it because
Hmm.
you just took that to like a completely different level. Um, First two songs, I do agree. They were like the cookie cutter type of songs. Um, but I don't know. Overall, I thought all the songs were actually really well written. And when I looked up like who wrote these songs, I'm pretty happy that she wrote all the songs on this album by herself, which is great. You could really like tell in like the lyrics and the delivery of it. Like these songs actually mean something. Um,
Hmm.
but there wasn't for me like when listening to this outside of Walked on Water, I didn't feel like there was like a signature
Hmm.
song on the album. Obsessed, maybe. Obsessed was a close one because that is the title track. But there wasn't one that was like, oh, this is like song of the year type of thing. The album sort
Hmm.
of just stayed in the lower tempo. Everything sort of stayed the same ish. Um, so that's the only part that I would nitpick on. There just wasn't like a one song that really like hooked you in outside of
Hmm.
Walked on Water, I would say.
I know what you mean. Now, what I thought was interesting about this album is it kind of brought this like almost, I don't want to say dark kind of feel to it, but it was like a different perspective of the generic, like, girl in a truck,
Yes.
drinking a beer kind of thing.
Yep.
Obviously, that's just cookie cutter country lyrics, but it kind of gave this, because I know Dolly Parton used to say like country comes from the soul, right? And
Mm,
then she always says there's two types of people. There's people who like country music, and then there's the people who don't know that they like country music,
right.
right? And I find that so interesting, and find that so true, because this is a completely different perspective of storytelling in country music, I think.
Mm.
And I don't know how to explain it.
No, no, it's like it's a different perspective because like I think 99% of all the country music that comes out is always like Christian straight male.
Mhm,
uh like that is the perspective of the majority of the country music even today that comes out. And like to
mhm,
get a different voice in is so important for like a genre that is so what's the word, just like one-sided. Like it's like it's actually refreshing that there is a different perspective in terms of where the lyrics come from in this genre.
mhm,
uh but I don't know, when I listen to this thing I'm like, they're all nice songs and I think they're all good, but there isn't the
mhm.
one thing that I'm like, that is really the song that like ties this whole album together.
Yeah.
Because even what's the Great American Bar Scene, who is that guy?
Oh, Zach Bryan.
Zach Bryan. Like I'm always going to like reference Oak Island on that album, being
Yeah,
like
that's a
that is
sick
the
song.
one song on this whole thing that ties it all together. It makes me
Mhm,
remember that this is the album that song is on, and I'm gonna come back to this album because I think that song
mhm.
is the important, like it's so good. Whereas this
And
album,
I
I can't name a song and be like, I need to listen to this album again.
and I agree with you with that, because like this is her third album. Like I'm
Fourth album,
excited.
fourth album.
It's her fourth album. Okay. I guess Apple Music's only showing me three.
Yeah.
So
Maybe there's a
it's
legal dispute somewhere. I don't know.
probably
Yeah.
um so like she's just gonna get better. Now, I would like to listen, like hear from the audience here. If you're a Morgan Wade fan, tell me which albums that you think are good, or do you think that this is her best? Because I think this is pretty damn good, especially with all the country that's out there right now. It's hard to like. I guess I'm comparing it to that, because there's a lot of trash country albums out there right now. That's it's just the same repeat, like, factory music. Um, so yeah, it's just refreshing to hear something honest.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and I think that like if you don't have that in country music, just that honesty and that storytelling, it's like, then what are we doing here for the genre? Because
Mhm,
like other genres, you can rely on different elements of the music to capture you. Because like metal music, it's just about the instrumentation and the virtuosity and how fast you
mhm,
can shred, right? Like that's sort of what you're going there for. But country music is about like the storytelling and connecting with the artist and what are they trying to say to you. So also in that respect, having that different perspective come in, that different voice is just like that's great for the genre because you need more of that in specifically this genre.
yeah, absolutely.
um Anyways, my general thoughts on the album is I like the album. I thought the songs were well written. I just didn't have that one song that
Mhm,
really catches me, and I'm just like, that's the one song off this album that I'm gonna always remember. Whereas like I sort of vaguely remember everything that happened on this album, but I'm not like, oh, you have to go listen to that one song.
mhm,
That's what, like if I were to tell someone, okay, this is the one song you need to listen to off this album so that it's going to convince you to listen to the rest of the album, like I don't have
mhm.
that for this one.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because I would recommend this album to somebody who likes this style of country music,
Hmm.
which is a specific style of country music, right? So if you're just listening to a generic, like I want to listen to a good country album, like I'd probably say, yeah, check out Morgan Wade, but I wouldn't necessarily say check out the album. I
Right.
would probably say check out her hits,
Right.
right?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Final thoughts, ratings. Eric, what are you gonna give this one?
I'm excited to go listen to the other three albums, I guess. So I like if you check out the first two songs, Take Walk on Water, put it at the bottom. I would have probably have given this a 9 out of 10
Ooh.
because I really enjoyed this album. But because of that, I don't think it's perfect at all. Like even if you've made it like that, I don't think it's perfect. But I would give this a 8 out of 10. That's what I'm going
Ooh.
for.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
So
I'm sort of in the same boat as you. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10 for this one because uh it's a good album. It's just I needed a bit more from it.
mhm.
Um but I'm glad it does exist because like I much rather have albums like this than like some of the actually not some most of the garbage that comes out that's just like factory made. Like for
Yeah.
country music, the factory made stuff is just like why even bother? Like why do people
Mhm.
listen to this stuff?
Mhm.
Anyway, 7.5 for me. So that is our discussion on Obsessed by Morgan Wade. For those of you following along with us every single week, the album that we are going to be discussing is F1 Trillion by Post Malone, the old man, as the
The
internet
old man
tells us.
is not relevant
He's
anymore.
not.
Maybe
He's
that's why he's changing genres.
he's not relevant. Why are we talking about this old man? That's what the
Mhm.
internet has told us.
Yeah,
It's just
because we're old as well.
to
That's
me,
why.
Post Malone is like a little baby.
I
Honestly,
know.
it's like yeah, he only came out like last year or something.
I totally think that too.
Yeah,
I'm like,
he's a brand new
he,
artist.
exactly.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's right. Chasing Dragonflies, yes, more country. Is
mhm.
would we consider Post Malone a country artist now?
No, no, because you if you if
That was a quick
because
no. That was such a quick
if you make an album
no.
with just country artists and surround yourself in country artists, you're not country. Right?
That's true. That is true. But maybe 5 albums down when he's done 5 country albums.
Like I don't think though that there's anything on this song like because here's the thing, Chasing Dragon. I knew you were going to mention this. I knew you were going to mention is Beyonce a country artist now. I would disagree with you because
Yeah, they
it
don't.
wasn't a country album. It was a Beyonce album,
Yeah,
right? It
yeah.
was R&B mixed with elements of country. So if you look at this Post Malone album, and yes, I'm going to keep calling him Post Malone. I don't care. But if you look at this, I don't think that there's one, two, three songs on this album that don't feature anybody else.
I didn't even know. I haven't looked at this album yet. So,
So everyone else is a high rated country artist, right?
oh,
Like you got Tim McGraw, Hank Williams Jr., you
he
got
has Hank
Morgan Wade,
Williams Jr. on here.
yeah,
Uh,
uh,
I'm gonna hate
Blake
this album.
Shelton, Dolly Parton, Brad Paisley, Luke Combs, Lainey Wilson, Jelly Roll, not country, right? You're just covering country at this point. You have Ernest, no idea who that is. Uh, yeah, then you have Chris Stapleton, like Billy Strings. So yeah, I'm
Billy Strings is on this. Damn.
Billy Strings is on this.
Okay, this should be interesting.
So yeah, so this is going to be interesting because there's
I've
18 songs on this album too. So
honestly, if the Hank Williams Jr. song is any good, I'm gonna have conflicting feelings about that because I have strong opinions on Hank Williams Jr. I I generally boycott his music, but I will listen to it for this podcast.
just for the podcast.
Okay. Anyways, F1 Trillion, Post Malone. That is the album we are going to be listening to next week. And that's the podcast for another week. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We are switching back to our Monday schedule, so we'll be back on Labor Day um, at 10 p.m. ET, 7 p.m. PT here at twitch.tv/ the Crossroads Music Podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, all the places where you get your podcast. And then YouTube is where the album reviews go up, where you can yell at us because we made a mistake on something and you feel the need that you should correct us. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's a great time over there. But that's it for another week. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will catch you all next time.